Story disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction and is intended for entertainment purposes only. The content includes dark themes, horror elements, and fictional depictions of rituals and sacrifices that are purely imaginative and not reflective of any real-life practices or beliefs. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is not suitable for younger audiences, and parental guidance is recommended. The story does not endorse or promote any harmful behavior, violence, or dangerous activities. Please note that all characters, events, and settings are entirely fictional and created for the purpose of storytelling. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events, is purely coincidental. In this final episode, the village of Akanni faces its most heart-wrenching moments yet. Akanni's desperate fight to reach her son leads to a horrifying confrontation as the darkness reveals the full extent of its malevolence. Baba Adisa, the village elder, must make a perilous journey into the spirit realm to rescue Ekundayo's soul. But even as the elder battles the overwhelming darkness, Ekundayo's fate and the future of the village hangs by a fragile thread. The story concludes with a haunting yet hopeful resolution, where love, sacrifice, and the strength of community become the keys to overcoming unimaginable trials. But just as light returns to Akanni, the scars left behind serve as a poignant reminder of the price of victory. Will the village and Ekundayo ever find true peace? Or does a shadow still linger, waiting for another dawn? Akanni's scream echoed through the village, waking the villagers from their sleep. They rushed out of their huts, confusion and fear etched on their faces as they looked toward the forest. Baba Adisa was among them, his heart pounding with dread as he recognized the voice. Akanni! Baba Adisa shouted, running toward the forest with a group of villagers following close behind. The darkness seemed thicker, more oppressive than usual, and an icy wind cut through the trees as they approached the clearing where Akanni's scream had originated. When they reached the clearing, they found Akanni lying on the ground, her eyes wide with terror, her body trembling uncontrollably. But what truly shocked them was the figure standing over her, Ekundayo, or at least, something that looked like him. Baba Adisa's breath caught in his throat. Ekundayo, how is this possible? But as he looked closer, he saw the truth. The figure before them was not the boy they had known. The darkness that had once plagued the village had taken root within him, twisting him into something monstrous, something no longer fully human. The villagers recoiled in horror, their whispers filling the air. Is it really him? How can this be? Ekundayo, or the thing that had once been Ekundayo, looked at Baba Adisa, his expression void of emotion. I am Ekundayo, and yet I am not. The darkness has consumed me, and now it seeks to consume you all. Baba Adisa's heart sank as the realization of what had happened hit him like a blow. The shadow had never truly left, it had simply found a new host, one that was strong enough to contain its malevolence, and now it sought to spread its corruption to the entire village. We must stop this, Baba Adisa said, his voice trembling. We must stop it before it's too late. But the creature that was once Ekundayo smiled, a twisted, cruel smile that sent chills down the spines of all who saw it. You cannot stop what has already begun, Baba Adisa. The darkness is here, and it will take everything. The shadows around the clearing began to writhe and twist, as if alive, spreading out like tendrils of night, reaching toward the villagers. Baba Adisa realized with growing horror that the darkness was not just a part of Ekundayo, it was a force that had taken on a life of its own, one that sought to consume all the light in the village. The villagers backed away in terror, some of them crying out in fear. But Baba Adisa knew they couldn't run, not this time. They had to fight, or the village would be lost forever. Stand your ground. Baba Adisa shouted, raising his staff. We must banish the darkness once and for all. But even as he spoke, he could feel the oppressive weight of the shadow growing stronger, feeding off the fear and despair of the villagers. The darkness was everywhere, in every corner, in every heart, and it was only getting stronger. Abini, still on the ground, looked up at her son, at the creature that had taken her son from her. Her heart broke as she realized that the boy she had loved and nurtured was gone, replaced by a monstrous entity that sought only to destroy. But even in her despair, she knew she couldn't give up. She couldn't let the darkness take everything from her. Ekundayo, Abini whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. If you're still in there, please fight it. I know you're stronger than this. For a brief moment, the dark figure hesitated, the cruel smile faltering. A glimmer of something, humanity, perhaps, flickered in its eyes. But then the darkness surged, snuffing out that glimmer, and the figure's expression twisted into one of rage. Ekundayo is gone, the creature hissed, its voice a blend of the boy's and something far more malevolent. He was weak, and now he belongs to the darkness. As will all of you. With that, the shadows around the clearing exploded outward, crashing over the villagers like a tidal wave. Baba Adisa raised his staff, chanting an incantation of protection, but the darkness was too powerful, too overwhelming. The villagers screamed as they were engulfed, their forms disappearing into the blackness. Abini struggled to her feet, tears streaming down her face as she watched the village she had known all her life being consumed by the very thing her son had fought so hard to defeat. No, she cried, her voice breaking. I won't let you do this. She rushed toward the creature, her hands outstretched as if to reach the son she had lost. But as she neared, the darkness around Ekundayo swelled and thickened, forming a barrier that threw her back with a force that knocked the wind out of her. Baba Adisa, too, fought against the encroaching darkness, but he could feel his strength waning. The elder had seen much in his long life, but this was a horror unlike any other, a living nightmare that threatened to consume everything he held dear. As the shadows closed in, he realized that the only way to save the village might be the one thing he had hoped to avoid. He would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. Ekundayo. Baba Adisa shouted, his voice booming with authority. If any part of you remains, listen to me. You must fight this darkness. You must break free. The creature, now fully merged with the darkness, turned its gaze to the elder, its eyes glowing with an unearthly light. You are a fool, old man, it snarled. There is no breaking free. There is only the darkness. But Baba Adisa wasn't finished. Summoning the last of his strength, he raised his staff high, the wood glowing with a brilliant light that cut through the shadows. The darkness recoiled, and for a brief moment, the figure that had once been Ekundayo was exposed, a vulnerable. Abini. Baba Adisa shouted. Now. Call to him. Abini, still on the ground, crawled toward the creature, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and terror. She knew this was their last chance, the last chance to reach her son before he was lost forever. Ekundayo, she cried, her voice filled with all the love and desperation she had left. I know you're in there. You've always been stronger than the darkness. Come back to me, my son. Please, come back. The creature hesitated again, its form flickering as if caught between two worlds. The darkness around it wavered, and for the briefest of moments, Abini saw her son's face, his real face, beneath the twisted mask of shadow. Mother, the boy's voice whispered, faint and distant, but unmistakably his own. Abini reached out to him, tears streaming down her face. Yes, Ekundayo. I'm here. Come back to me, please. But as she reached for him, the darkness surged once more, swallowing up the light and the moment of clarity. The creature let out a roar of rage, the shadows swirling around it with renewed fury. You cannot save him, the creature screamed, its voice a distorted blend of Ekundayo's and something much darker. He belongs to me. The darkness will consume you all. Baba Adisa, weakened by the effort, fell to his knees, the light from his staff flickering dangerously. He could feel the darkness closing in, the weight of it pressing down on him, threatening to snuff out the last of his strength. Akanni, too, felt the despair closing in, the realization that she might lose her son forever sinking in like a knife to the heart. But even as the shadows grew thicker, even as the darkness seemed insurmountable, she refused to give up. With a cry of pure desperation, Akanni threw herself at the creature, her arms wrapping around it in a fierce embrace. "Ekundayo," she cried, her voice raw with emotion. "I love you. Come back to me, please." For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The darkness stopped its relentless advance, the air thick with tension. Akanni could feel the cold, suffocating presence of the shadow, but she also felt something else, the faint warmth, a flicker of light deep within the creature's form. The darkness writhed and twisted, as if trying to shake her off, but Akanni held on with all her strength, refusing to let go. "You are my son," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know you're still in there. I will never give up on you." The creature's form flickered again, the darkness around it pulsing with an unnatural light. For a moment, Akanni thought she saw Ekundayo's eyes, the real Ekundayo, looking back at her, filled with pain and fear. But then the darkness surged again, more powerful than ever, and the creature screamed, a sound of pure agony and rage. The shadows around it expanded, pushing Akanni back, throwing her to the ground. "No!" Akanni screamed, her voice filled with despair as she watched the creature's form grow darker, more twisted. "No, please." But just as all hope seemed lost, Baba Adisa, summoning the last of his strength, raised his staff one final time. The light from the staff blazed, cutting through the darkness, piercing the heart of the creature that had once been Ekundayo. The creature screamed, its form shattering under the force of the light. The darkness that had consumed it began to disintegrate, breaking apart like ash in the wind. But as the shadow broke, something else happened, something that none of them had expected. A beam of dark light, as cold and malevolent as the void itself, shot from the creature's chest and struck Akanni. The force of it knocked her back, and she crumpled to the ground, her body lifeless. "No!" Baba Adisa cried, rushing to her side. But as he reached her, he saw that it was too late. The darkness had taken Akanni, just as it had tried to take Ekundayo. The creature, now nothing more than a wisp of shadow, let out one final, pitiful whimper before it dissolved completely, leaving behind only silence. Baba Adisa fell to his knees beside Akanni, his heart breaking at the sight of the woman who had given everything for her son. She had fought so hard, loved so fiercely, but in the end, the darkness had claimed her. The villagers, too, gathered around, their faces pale with shock and grief. They had been saved, yes, but the cost was too high. Ekundayo was gone, and now, so was Akanni. The village, once full of life and light, now seemed empty, hollow, the place haunted by the memory of those they had lost. Baba Adisa looked up at the sky, his eyes filled with tears. He had seen so much in his long life, but nothing had prepared him for this, nothing could have prepared him for the loss of two souls who had fought so hard against the darkness. In that moment, he realized that the darkness had not just been a force to be fought, it had been a reflection of the pain and sorrow that lived in all of them. And now, with the loss of Ekundayo and Akanni, that darkness had left a wound that would never fully heal. Days turned into weeks, and the village of Akanni struggled to find its way in the aftermath of the tragedy. The loss of Ekundayo and Akanni weighed heavily on the hearts of the villagers, and though the darkness that had once threatened them was gone, its shadow still lingered in their minds. The villagers tried to go on with their lives, rebuilding their homes, tending to their crops, and caring for their families. But there was a void in the village, a sense that something vital had been taken from them. The once lively square was now a place of silence and sorrow, a reminder of the price they had paid for their survival. Baba Adisa, too, found himself struggling with the weight of the events that had transpired. He had seen the strength and courage of Ekundayo, the fierce love of Akanni, and the darkness that had consumed them both. But now, he was left with a hollow victory, a sense that the true battle had been lost. One evening, as the sun set over the village, casting long shadows across the ground, Baba Adisa walked through the quiet streets, his heart heavy with the burden of what had been lost. The village was eerily still, the once vibrant community now subdued, as if the very soul of Akanni had been drained away. He found himself drawn to the edge of the forest, the place where so much had begun and ended. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of earth and leaves, but there was an unnatural chill that seemed to seep into his bones. Baba Adisa knew that the village would never be the same, but he also sensed that something was still unresolved, that the darkness had not been fully vanquished. As he stood at the forest's edge, he heard a faint whisper, carried on the wind. It was a voice he recognized all too well, a voice that sent chills down his spine. Baba Adisa. The elder turned, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and dread. There, standing just within the shadows of the trees, was Ekundayo, or what was left of him. The boy's form was pale, translucent, his eyes dark and hollow, but his presence was undeniable. Baba Adisa's breath caught in his throat. Ekundayo, is it truly you? The ghostly figure of Ekundayo stepped forward, his expression filled with sorrow and regret. I am here, Baba Adisa, but I am not whole. The darkness took a part of me, and I cannot find peace. Baba Adisa's heart ached at the sight of the boy who had once been so full of life, now reduced to a shadow of his former self. You fought so bravely, Ekundayo. You gave everything to protect this village. Ekundayo nodded, but there was a deep sadness in his eyes. I did what I could, but the darkness was too strong. It took my soul, and now I am trapped between worlds, unable to move on. Baba Adisa felt a tear slip down his cheek. What can I do to help you, my child? Ekundayo's gaze locked onto the elders, and for a moment there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. There is one way, but it is dangerous. You must enter the spirit realm, Baba Adisa, and retrieve what was lost. Only then can I be freed, and only then can the village find true peace. The elder's heart pounded with fear at the thought of entering the spirit realm, a place fraught with dangers that could easily consume a mortal soul. But he knew that he could not leave Ekundayo to suffer in this state, nor could he allow the darkness to continue casting its shadow over the village. I will do it, Baba Adisa said, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. I will enter the spirit realm and bring you back, Ekundayo. Ekundayo's form flickered, his gratitude palpable. Thank you, Baba Adisa. But be warned, the darkness is still strong, and it will try to stop you. You must be prepared for whatever you may face. The elder nodded, his resolve hardening. He knew that this journey would be the most dangerous he had ever undertaken, but he was determined to see it through. He could not let the boy who had given everything be lost to the darkness forever. That night, Baba Adisa prepared himself for the journey. He gathered the necessary herbs and protective charms, and he spent hours in meditation, fortifying his spirit for the trials to come. The villagers watched him with a mixture of fear and awe, knowing that he was about to undertake something that could determine the fate of them all. As midnight approached, Baba Adisa made his way to the center of the village, where a sacred circle had been prepared for the ritual. The moon shone brightly overhead, casting a pale light over the scene. The villagers gathered around, their faces filled with hope and trepidation. Baba Adisa knelt in the center of the circle, closing his eyes as he began to chant the ancient incantation that would open the gateway to the spirit realm. The air around him grew heavy, charged with energy, and the ground beneath him seemed to hum with power. The elder's voice grew louder, more insistent, as the gateway began to form, a shimmering portal of light that hovered just above the ground. The villagers gasped as the portal expanded, its edges crackling with energy, and they could feel the presence of the spirit realm pressing against the boundary between worlds. Baba Adisa took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He knew that once he entered the portal, there would be no turning back. The spirit realm was a place of unknown dangers, where the rules of the physical world did not apply, and where the darkness that had taken Ekundayo still lurked, waiting to strike. With one final glance at the villagers who depended on him, Baba Adisa stepped into the portal, the light swallowing him whole. Baba Adisa emerged on the other side of the portal, finding himself in a place that was both alien and familiar. The spirit realm was a world of shadows and light, where the landscape shifted and changed with each passing moment. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the sound of distant whispers, as if the very fabric of the realm was alive with the voices of spirits. The ground beneath his feet was solid, yet it seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and the sky above was a swirling mass of colors and shapes that defied description. The elder knew that he had to remain focused. This was a place where the mind could easily become lost, and where the darkness could take many forms. As he ventured deeper into the spirit realm, Baba Adisa could feel the presence of the darkness growing stronger. It was a cold, malevolent force that seemed to seep into every corner of the realm, twisting and corrupting everything it touched. The elder knew that this was the same darkness that had consumed Ekundayo, and that he would have to face it head-on if he was to save the boy. He walked for what felt like hours, the landscape shifting around him, until he reached a place that sent chills down his spine. It was a vast, desolate wasteland, devoid of life and light, and at its center stood a towering fortress made of black stone. The walls of the fortress were jagged and sharp, and they seemed to pulsate with a dark energy that radiated outwards, suffocating everything in its path. Baba Adisa knew that this was the heart of the darkness, the place where Ekundayo's soul was trapped. He could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on him, trying to crush his spirit, but he refused to give in. He had come too far to turn back now. As he approached the fortress, the ground beneath him began to shake, and the sky above darkened. The whispers that had filled the air grew louder, more insistent, until they became a deafening roar. The darkness was aware of his presence, and it was not pleased. The gates of the fortress creaked open, revealing a yawning void within. Baba Adisa steeled himself, knowing that whatever lay beyond those gates would be the greatest challenge he had ever faced. But he had no choice. He had to enter if he was to save Ekundayo. The elder stepped through the gates, the darkness closing in around him like a living thing. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the walls of the fortress seemed to close in on him, suffocating him with their oppressive presence. But Baba Adisa pressed on, his heart filled with determination. As he ventured deeper into the fortress, he began to hear a sound, a soft, pitiful sobbing that echoed through the halls. The sound grew louder as he approached, until he reached a small chamber at the heart of the fortress. There, huddled in the center of the chamber, was Ekundayo. The boy was curled up on the ground, his body trembling with sobs, and his form was flickering, as if he was caught between two worlds. His eyes were dark, hollow, and filled with a pain that broke Baba Adisa's heart. Ekundayo, the elder whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "I'm here, my child. I'm here to take you home." But Ekundayo didn't respond. His sobs grew louder, more desperate, as if he was trapped in a nightmare from which he could not wake. The darkness that surrounded him was thick, almost tangible, and it clung to him like a shroud, feeding off his pain and despair. Baba Adisa knelt beside the boy, his heart aching as he reached out to him. "Ekundayo, please, listen to me. You are stronger than this. You can fight it. I know you can." But as his hand touched Ekundayo's shoulder, the boy recoiled, a look of terror in his eyes. "No." Ekundayo screamed, his voice filled with anguish. "Stay away. I'm not me anymore. I'm the darkness." The words hit Baba Adisa like a blow. The boy he had come to save was slipping away, consumed by the very thing he had fought so hard to defeat. The darkness had taken root in his soul, twisting his mind, and now it was trying to take him completely. But Baba Adisa refused to give up. He had come too far, risked too much, to let the darkness win. He would not live without Ekundayo. You are not the darkness, Ekundayo, Baba Adisa said firmly, his voice carrying a power that cut through the despair. You are my son, the boy who fought with all his heart to protect his village. The boy who never gave up, even when the odds were against him. You are stronger than this evil. You are stronger than the darkness. Ekundayo's trembling form seemed to pause, as if the words had reached something deep within him. But the darkness was relentless, its tendrils tightening around the boy, pulling him deeper into the abyss of despair. I can't fight it, Baba Adisa, Ekundayo whispered, his voice barely audible. It's too strong. I've tried, but it won't let me go. It's inside me, and I'm afraid I'll never be free. Baba Adisa's heart broke at the pain in the boy's voice, but he knew that this was the critical moment, the moment that would determine whether Ekundayo could be saved or if he would be lost to the darkness forever. You don't have to do this alone, Baba Adisa said, his voice filled with unwavering determination. I am here with you, and so is the love of your mother and the strength of your village. We are all here, Ekundayo, and we will fight this together. The elder reached out, placing his hands on Ekundayo's shoulders, and began to chant a powerful incantation, a prayer of light, of protection, and of love. The words flowed from him with a strength that belied his age, and the chamber around them began to glow with a soft, golden light. The darkness recoiled, hissing in anger as the light grew brighter, pushing it back. Ekundayo's form began to stabilize, the flickering shadows around him retreating in the face of the elder's magic. But the darkness was not so easily defeated. With a roar of fury, it surged forward, crashing against the light like a tidal wave. The chamber shook with the force of the attack, then Baba Adisa felt the strain of holding the darkness at bay. But he did not falter, he could not afford to. Ekundayo, listen to me. Baba Adisa shouted over the roar of the darkness. You must fight. Use the strength that I know you have. The darkness can only win if you let it. Ekundayo's eyes, filled with tears and fear, locked onto Baba Adisa's. There was a flicker of recognition, the spark of the boy he had been, buried deep beneath the layers of shadow. I don't want to be the darkness, Ekundayo whispered, his voice trembling. I want to come home. The words were all Baba Adisa needed. With a final surge of strength, he poured every ounce of his power into the incantation, the golden light exploding outward, engulfing the entire chamber in a brilliant blaze. The darkness screamed in agony, its tendrils burning away as the light consumed it. Ekundayo cried out, his body convulsing as the darkness was ripped from his soul. For a moment, it seemed as though the boy might be torn apart by the force of the struggle, but then, with a blinding flash of light, the darkness shattered, dissolving into nothingness. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight of the darkness gone. Baba Adisa collapsed to the ground, his strength spent, but his heart filled with relief. The darkness had been defeated, truly defeated this time, and Ekundayo was free. The boy lay on the ground, his chest heaving with deep, rugged breaths. His eyes, once filled with darkness, were now clear, and the terror that had gripped him was replaced with a deep, overwhelming sorrow. Baba Adisa, Ekundayo whispered, his voice weak but clear. I'm so sorry. The elder crawled to his side, gathering the boy into his arms. You have nothing to be sorry for, my son. You fought bravely, and you have won. You are free now. Ekundayo shook his head, tears streaming down his face. But I hurt people. I let the darkness take me. I let it hurt mother. Baba Adisa's heart ached at the pain in the boy's voice. He knew that Ekundayo would carry the scars of this battle for the rest of his life, but he also knew that the boy was still alive, still capable of healing. Your mother loved you more than anything, Ekundayo, Baba Adisa said softly. She gave everything to save you, and in the end, she succeeded. You are here, alive, because of her love and your own strength. Ekundayo's tears fell freely now, his body racked with sobs. I miss her so much. I know, my child, Baba Adisa whispered, holding him close. But she is with you, always. Her love is a part of you, just as it is a part of this village. She lives on through you, and through the life you will build. The two of them sat there, in the heart of the spirit realm, surrounded by the fading remnants of the battle. The darkness was gone, but the price had been steep, and the wounds would take time to heal. But as they sat together, the light of the spirit realm began to shift, transforming the barren landscape around them. The dark fortress crumbled into dust, and in its place, a beautiful, vibrant garden began to grow. Flowers bloomed, trees sprouted, and the air filled with the sweet scent of life and renewal. It was a sign that the darkness had truly been defeated, and that life could begin anew. Baba Adisa helped Ekundayo to his feet, the boy still weak but filled with a sense of hope. "It's time to go home, Ekundayo," the elder said gently. "There is still so much for you to do, and so much for you to become." Ekundayo nodded, a small, hopeful smile on his face. "Yes, Baba Adisa. I'm ready." Together, they walked out of the spirit realm, the portal closing behind them with a soft sigh. The villagers, who had waited anxiously for their return, gasped with relief and joy as they saw Ekundayo emerge, alive and whole. But the village would not forget the price that had been paid. They would honor the memory of Akanni, and they would support Ekundayo as he healed and grew into the leader they knew he could be. The village of Akanni slowly returned to life in the weeks and months that followed. The fields were tilled, the homes rebuilt, and the laughter of children once again filled the air. But there was a deeper sense of unity among the villagers, a bond forged by the trials they had endured together. Ekundayo, though still haunted by the memories of the darkness, found strength in the love and support of his people. He worked alongside them, helping to rebuild what had been lost, and slowly but surely, he began to heal. But there were nights when he would wake in the darkness, his heart pounding with fear, the remnants of his battle with the shadow still fresh in his mind. On those nights, he would sit by the fire, staring into the flames, and remember the love of his mother, the sacrifice she had made, and the strength she had passed on to him. One such night, Baba Adisa joined him by the fire. The elder sat quietly for a moment, then spoke softly. "The past will always be with us, Ekundayo. It is a part of who we are. But it does not have to define us." Ekundayo nodded, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames. "I know, Baba Adisa. But sometimes, it's hard to let go." Baba Adisa placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "You are stronger than you know, my son. You have faced the darkness and emerged victorious. That strength is a part of you now, just as the light is. You are not alone in this." Ekundayo looked at the elder, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, Baba Adisa. I will do my best to honor everything you and mother have done for me." The elder smiled, a warmth in his eyes that spoke of pride and love. "You already have, Ekundayo. And you will continue to do so. The future is yours to shape, and I have no doubt that you will lead this village with wisdom and compassion." As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Ekundayo felt a sense of peace settle over him. The darkness that had once threatened to consume him was gone, and in its place was a new beginning, a chance to build a life filled with hope, love, and light. The village of Akanni would always remember the trials they had faced, the sacrifices that had been made, and the courage of a boy who had fought against impossible odds to save them all. But they would also look to the future, a future that Ekundayo would lead with the strength and wisdom he had earned through his journey. As the sun rose, casting its golden light over the village, Ekundayo stood and faced the new day with a heart filled with hope. The darkness was behind him, and a new dawn had arrived. And with it, the promise of a brighter tomorrow.